Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Pharma Marketing Playbook, Data, Gen AI, and Beyond, your go to podcast for pharmaceutical marketing, data analytics, and AI trends. Join industry leaders as we explore cutting edge strategies, emerging technologies, and how data driven insights are transforming the pharma landscape. I'm Saumya Prakash, co founder at Multiplier AI, and today we have a truly special guest joining us, Ms. Bandna Katna. We are delighted to welcome our distinguished leader in commercial analytics and data driven service excellence in the pharmaceutical industry. With an academic foundation from Himachal Pradesh University and Rewa University in Bangalore, Ms. Bandna brings a strong combination of analytical depth, business acumen, and strategic execution. Her professional journey reflects a thoughtful, steady evolution at the intersection of analytics and commercial strategy. In today's episode, we look forward to unpacking her journey, exploring the evolving role of commercial analytics, and discussing how data, AI, and execution excellence are reshaping the future of pharma marketing. So, welcome, Bandna. It's a real pleasure to have you on the Pharma Marketing Playbook.
Thank you, Saumya. A very good morning. Thank you for such a nice, kind introduction. The pleasure is all mine. So, if I have to summarize what you said about my introduction, I carry more than 16 years of experience, and you rightly put it just at the intersection of data, commercial strategy, and execution. And that makes it way more special in its own ways because the kind of exposure that comes along the way is tremendous, and the learnings are very helpful in your career. So as you said, I started working with data early on in my career and started working with the businesses, especially with the sales and marketing organizations, from a very close setup. Looking at it from how the MIS is being prepared, how the management reporting being done, how the analytics is being done, and then evolving into looking into the commercial analytics part of it, which was more of SFE, incentivization, targeting, quota planning, territory mapping, all of it was so very truly special because I could real time see the impact that was made on the field directly by the teams, right? One decision can directly be linked to the performance outcomes, positive or negative. As I progressed in my career journey and I moved on to working with the global organizations, I saw a very different set of challenges. While on the one side, the exposure was that the decisions are being linked with the performance directly. Here, the challenge was the data was available, the tools and technologies were available, much advanced than before, but the connectivity onto the real time insights or linking it with the impact that's being done was a very challenging task. And that basically developed my foundation of the differences between the two. So, being data being available is not the only challenge, but data being operationalized at the org level and also being scaled smoothly is the another challenge that I exposed myself to. And from there on, the journey began exploring the commercial data, the gaps, the governance, and how can we scale it beyond. So, and I'm glad to talk you through the journey that I have been through and the learnings that I have had in my career during this time with you. Thank you.
Vandana. I truly appreciate you candidly sharing your journey with us. But before we get into deeper industry conversations, I'd love our listeners to get to know the person behind the role. Your journey has been from customer relations into MIS and commercial analytics. It's a very broad spectrum that you have covered in your journey. And now you are into enterprise level data and service delivery, which is a lot of to do with leadership and management of capability over time. So tell us a little bit about how your pharma analytics journey started. What shaped the way you think about your role today? How did your mindset change over the years?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and that makes me think about how my journey had been. Not often I look back and, reflect on the journey that I have had. Honestly, it wasn't by the design. It was as it continued moving. I started working on with the CRM early on in my career because I think I didn't know what I wanted to do, and the opportunity that came along the way, I just wanted to explore and probably give my best in that. And that's how I started. But eventually, I started realizing that I have a fond interest in looking into data, working very closely with business. Working very closely with business was an opportunity which I always looked up to, and which gave me a lot of energy. And I always used to look forward for going to office just for having that conversation with the business leader. Okay, how did he find the analytics that's being generated, what decision he want to take based on those analytics or the reports being generated. I used to get so very excited about meeting, having those conversations, and I think that's how I started and got into a role at which was very closely working with the management, where my role was doing the MIS analytics. And the analytics journey started then on. While it was not a pharmaceutical company, and as I said, it wasn't planned, I kind of happened to get an opportunity working with as a sales analyst eventually. So it was a very organic, natural kind of a progression without having much to plan about the industry that I wanted to land up in. When I started working with, and back then it was part of what I realized was that there is much more impact that we are creating within this industry by looking at the data and the decisions that making than any other industry, because it's directly or indirectly impacts the lives of the patients out there. While you think that your role at looking at the data is not making a direct impact at the customer or patient level, but that wasn't true. The impact which was, or the decision, small or big, was taken was directly impacting them, and that kind of encouraged me further to look into this field and move roles. I spent a large time in that organization and played various roles around the spectrum, as you rightly said. Started again with sales analytics, moved into commercial analytics, and kind of got a real time hands on exposure on how each decision are being done to create the impact at the customer and the patient level. And from there on, then I moved into another opportunity that I got into, was to doing a global role, and that was something which I was aspiring for. So I moved on from doing a region specific role or a country specific role to a global role, exposed myself to a very different challenges in the industry, along with the learnings, could contribute in the data and operational field or data and delivery field. And from there on to now, leading the enterprise level initiatives, it has been obviously a learning journey full of challenges, full of opportunities, but at the same time creating an impact at a larger scale, which kept me going on this.
Lessons for all our listeners, because a lot of our listeners are aspiring digital pharma professionals, digital data analytics professionals. I think you can pick up from Mina's journey how sometimes a sequence of not so much planned events but opportunities, how she capitalized on them, and this led her to a global leadership role. So I think a lot of learning, in that way, that taking the opportunities as they come by and making the best use of it, and you never know what awaits in the future. So I mean, that's a very inspiring side of things. In fact, you have worked on both the sides, first as a service partner where you help pharma companies, and today now you are as a leader inside a pharma company. Very few people actually get to see both sides of the view. So how does your thinking change when you move from being a partner to being the one making decisions inside a company? What has that dual view taught you?
Again, that's a very great exposure one can have in their lifetime, and I believe I've been the privileged enough to be having the exposure on both sides of the table, as you rightly put. There is a very fundamental difference the both sides operates. Talking about the partner side of the role, what you do is, while you're trying to solve a business problem, you are not owning the scalability of it, you're not owning the decision at the end of it. What you will do, probably you will own the problem, you will try to bring in best in class analytical solution, the frameworks, the governance model, and present them to the stakeholders without knowing whether they are compatible with the ecosystem or not. That's typically because your exposure as a partner to the organization, the ecosystem, the system they are working with, the tools and platforms they're working with, is very limited. While that changes completely when you start working in house. Now here, along with owning the business problem and defining or creating a solution for it, you also need to start asking yourselves the questions that the solution that you're putting together might look complete in itself, but is it gonna work across the markets, across the portfolios, across the systems, across the tools? Because you yourself are exposed to the challenges, to the limitations of the organizations in with respect to tools, with respect to platforms, with respect to budgets, the constraints, the decision making, the timeline, and the larger impact, right? So it becomes a whole lot of ecosystem while you start solving a problem, to look at the solution in a way that it is not only the right solution, but it is compatible and it is scalable across the markets over time, so that it becomes a cohesive solution at the large or at the end of it. The problem is not particular to a region that you're trying to solve or particular market that you're trying to solve, but for the entire globe. So that becomes a very different lens you start looking at a problem in itself when you are in house, and all those decisions are left to you to make, right? Which tool, which system, what timelines, what budget, what constraints, what resources. And then you start looking more practically, right? While you want to achieve the end objective, but you want to achieve it the most economical way possible, because budgets are finite, you want to achieve them in the timelines those look effective in terms of creating an impact. You also want to look at the resources, you also want to look at the capabilities that you're building. They should be all ready in the evolving environment that you're working in, and also not only cater to the today's scenario, but also are ready to scale to tomorrow's problem solving as well. So that's the classic difference I have exposed myself to, and I think it had great learning in itself. Now, before I try to solve a problem, I try to understand the impact, lateral impact it might create, or the cascading impact it might create at the business, at the solution owner, or at the person who is going to consume this information or this solution that you're going to provide on daily basis. So I keep them at the center of it and then try to draft a solution around it, while on the other side you try to just achieve a very comprehensive solution without knowing much about the internal ecosystem.
Couple of points, which are very relevant and very apt that you mentioned, that how the complexity is playing upon in terms of resource timelines, also the softwares or the KPIs of teams that have to be kept in mind, and everything is in a finite state of mind. And in fact, the way we look at it, global pharma is changing extremely fast today.
Yes.
Teams are far more connected across countries. Work is being becoming digital first. If we see the last 5 years, AI has become so much center stage, and it's now kind of on the mandatory list for multiple areas and scales across regions. So how do you see pharma commercial operations changing over the next 3 or 5 years, and what should leaders invest in to stay ahead? Should it be learning, training at an individual level or at a team level, or how do they prepare for the storm that is ahead of us?
Yes, Soumya, again, a very relevant question in today's scenario, and I think people who are working in the domain would be experiencing on day-to-day basis. So in my view, the pharma commercial operations right now are at a very interesting inflection point, where I think it's going to go ahead into a direction which is, to your point, which is more comprehensive and not playing in silos. What that means is that in practice, it has to come together, not only reflecting the KPIs in terms of omni-channel reach, engagement, click rates, open rates, etc. It also gonna kind of evaluate the performance of all that the organizations are going to do or are trying to do in terms of how is it changing the behavior that they want to shift within the consumer, within HCP, patient, or be it anybody at the receiving end, around which the omni-channel in itself is playing around. So I think there is going to be a classic shift, and it's not tomorrow, it's already happening. We are witnessing it even today in all the organizations. People are talking about more of the outcomes than the KPIs or the metrics being achieved. So that's a classic shift, and I think that's the much needed shift in the today's scenario. Also, I think I would see that there would be, interestingly, three major pillars in my view where we would witness more shift happening. One of them is that we probably would start seeing a true omni-channel orchestration in future. We are seeing it now also, but I think with a little bit of more improvement in this space, we would start seeing a true omni-channel orchestration within the pharma domain in itself. What does that mean is that we will try and link all the channels that we are trying to deliver the touch points to the patients or to the HCPs, and not play and look at them in isolation. So the offline channels, how the reps are promoting and talking, and how the digital channels are doing the promotion about the brand, about the product, and how the third party integrations or third party communications are happening. All of them are supposed to be coming together to make sure that we are delivering a very related or nicely knitted touch points to the customer, to be able to make their decision and their consumer or their user journey very seamless. So I would see that we are already witnessing that happening. Teams are trying to kind of bring all the platforms, all the tools together, to so that each can learn from every channel, every communication, or every transaction that is happening, and bring it in at one place to have a look at it, so that we can cross learn, connect, and improve. The another big shift in my view is, which is already happening, and we have seen AI shifting the things drastically. What does that mean is that we will see AI playing more important role in terms of automations, which are very critical for us, not in terms of automating the data flows, but also supervising those data flows and looking at the quality and the performance that's being delivered. That, in my view, is going to be another shift. The third and the major one, which I am experiencing on daily basis, is the scale, the governance of the data, and the operational scale of the data in itself, because that's going to be the forming the foundation of it altogether, right? So when I say the data, the governance, the operational scale, that means that we will have to start embedding compliance, not as an after action for our data and reporting requirements, but as something which is an embedded solution right at the beginning. So compliance is embedded into the data right at the foundational layer of it. Then I also see that we will have to probably start working towards making these tools and platforms talk to each other, bring the data at one place, put it together, start learning from it, and make it clean, structured, and scalable in a way that tomorrow, if we would want to make the analytics and the insights live, it is in true sense live. We are not delivering something today which is actually telling us the output of our action tomorrow, but it is going to tell us something about our action which we are gonna take in future. So to me, I'm seeing these three major shifts, and obviously data is one part of it, which I'm witnessing on daily basis. And I think these are truly the great shifts for the larger learnings and the database and the foundation that we are going to develop for our omni-channel in future.
I agree with you. I think, since we have touched upon so many aspects of data, as you rightly put it, omni-channel is the future. And the honest truth is still that most of the companies globally are still struggling with the data foundation underneath. And when we talk of AI, data becomes so much crucial, because how do we train the AI model? We need to have our field engagement data that lives in a CRM, digital market that lives in maybe another platform on social media, medical interactions live in their own system. And then, stitching all this together for a data leader globally, it just absolutely multiplies the complexity of things. And I can very well understand the challenges of global leaders like you, who look at how do you resolve this in the first place. And data orchestration, data agents can solve a bit of it, but how much how much percentage of the journey do you think we have as an industry covered, and how much of it is still left uncovered in terms of data sanity?
So again, that's a very fundamental thing. Actually, every organization should start looking at it. In my view, we still have far more way to cover. We are not yet there. Rather, I would say we have started to understand with the agentic AI, with the AI in itself coming into, and there is so much more we can do with it, but we can only do when the data is available, right? We need to understand that all the AI, all the agentic AI, all the workflow automations can only be done on data. They can only learn from data and deliver you the actions or the insights or tell you what's happening wrong or right. Until unless that foundation layer is set right, I think any of the insights or any of the recommendations, those are going to get generated through these recommendation engines that we are trying to develop in today's scenario, are not going to be solving the purpose, or probably are not going to give us the right directions that we would expect. So we still have a lot more way to cover. As I said, that right now the data is available in fragmented ways. Some teams are owning some data, some tools are owning some data, some data is available with third party people who are doing things, and none of it is coming together and sitting at one place for us to be able to drive some decisions. So to your point, it's not one individual person. All the teams needs to come together. The team needs to be trained. The system needs to be made ready to accommodate or to actually work on the data which is of that huge size, that huge variations. Also, another challenge which we face on day to day life and is a real example of how each of these systems and tools generate the data is very different to each other. How all of that can bring into a structure, put it at a right or at one place, and then from there we start generating the insights. I think there is long way to cover for each organization, be it small or big. So I'll kind of quickly summarize what I said so that we are closing this question. Is what I meant to say is that a consistent, a scalable, and an embedded day to day execution is still something which most organizations are evolving at, and is still not yet at a place where we have come to a stage that we can start generating the real time insights from tomorrow across everything that we are doing.
Yeah, I think those were really very insightful points that you mentioned, Bandna, in your response. And there's a theme that comes up consistently in global pharma omni-channel research. A large majority of healthcare professionals still feel that the communications they receive from pharma companies are generic and impersonal, and only a small share feel genuinely engaged. And yet, almost every pharma company we speak to has invested heavily in omni-channel platforms, CRM modernization, and content personalization over the last few years. So there seems to be a clear gap between ambition and execution.
Yes. So, as you rightly mentioned, while most companies are doing omni-channel engagement in today's scenario, not not a large part of them has been yet able to crack the kind of communication that an HCP is probably expecting from them. So there is still exists a gap. We have figured out at what time of the day we have to send out the email. We have figured out through which channel we have to promote or reach out to HCPs. But we have not yet figured out the personalization part of it. What kind of content a person wants to see. And the gap exists because first let's understand that we don't have enough data to learn from, or the data that we are learning from, our models are being trained on to identify the affinity of HCPs towards a channel, towards a content, or towards the promotional material, is being identified from something which is being done historically at a not at a larger audience. While we have started evolving our models from which are learning from the historical data, ideally should be this way, but our historical data has not been yet able to help us identify the patterns of the affinity, and therefore that gap still exists. I think it would take some more time for us to identify the personalization bit of it. While we have identified the rest of it, I think you would see people talking a lot about the next best action sort of engines being developed. What do they do is they tell that, okay, what time of the day you need to engage with this person, through which channel you need to engage with this person. But those models are yet not being able to recommend what content. Okay, I think we will take some more time to evolve to come to that stage, but we are slowly moving, given that we are now sitting at ample amount of data historically. which probably we need to start looking at from a very different perspective, which is the content part of it. I think we have not been looking at it from a content side of things, but from a very technological affinity model standpoint. Therefore, this gap. I think time is not far. We will start looking into the content bit of it, the content affinity bit of it, and probably improvising more on the personalization part of it. And there are the global nuances to it, right? I mean, if you start targeting an individual HCP, what does it take from you to be ready at the back end from a system standpoint, rather than targeting a group of HCPs? Right now, it is like segmentation is being done for a look-alike sort of a set of people, and then the promotions are happening. But what we are talking about is individual. I, as me, should get that message. Nobody else should, because I have affinity towards a particular sort of content. We are moving towards that journey. I think probably have to wait and watch how do we go, but yes, the gap still exists.
Again, thanks for your response. Wonderful points about how data is changing, its relevance today, and how multiple companies are looking at rethinking their data strategy, given the insights that you just brought in. At Multiplier AI, we spend a lot of time on exactly this question: where AI and Gen AI actually move the needle in pharma commercials versus where they just show up on a slide. Across the industry, well executed next best action programs are starting to show meaningful uplift in both sales and HCP engagements. But there's still a lot of noise in the market. Tools being sold as AI. Every company is in fact an AI company, and that are really just automations with a new label. So, what's your point of view? And as a decision maker from the industry, how would you look at various companies and differentiate the real AI work from the kind of just pure automation or kind of copycats? What's your view on this?
Yes. So reflecting on my own experience and journey on this, while AI has truly started making a difference, there is no denial on it. It has kind of saved us a lot of efforts in terms of automating something which probably was so much efforts heavy in terms of manual efforts, and also was prone to errors. So, for example, we have done a tremendously good job in terms of automating the reporting part of it, the visualization part of it, probably generating the insights at much frequent pace, or much frequent intervals than before. But I think what we have yet not been able to figure out is when we say that we are automating end-to-end workflows. So, the definition of automating end to end workflows is something that has not come together yet, in my experience and in my view, because what is happening is that each workflow that we are trying to develop is learning from one system or the other system, right? And when uh, all these agentic AIs and AI learns from the data that's being given, as I spoke before, and we are not looking at the foundational layer of it, how meaningful that data is, how clean that data is, how much noise in that data is, how many outliers in that data is, probably something which we all as corporate citizens need to start thinking and working on. While it may sound trivial, and many organizations might feel that they have progressed far away, but the outcome of all these agentic AI and AI solutions is not so much reliable, because the base is not reliable. And I think that's something where we will have to spend more time. It's like that 80-20 Pareto rule, right? If you spend 80% of the time cleaning and setting up the baseline, rest would be covered in 20% of the time. I truly believe, and I think I heavily also focus on that, we should have the foundational layer set right with terms of every compliance embedded into it. There is a governance model being set up into it. Then there is the data is made ready to scale before we start implementing any solutions or any AI solutions to get the desired outcomes. And there still exists a huge gap.
I completely agree with what you have said, Manna. But having good data and insights is one thing, and making sure they actually change what the field does on Monday morning is a completely different challenge altogether. So, in your experience, since you have been in global leadership position, why is service delivery excellence so critical to making data insights translate into real on ground commercial impact? And what separates a high performing operating model from an average one? Maybe your insights would be very helpful for our listeners.
Yes, so in my view, generating insights and presenting them in a beautiful visualization, as you rightly put it, is very easy, right? But to kind of bring that element of what data truly telling you and what experts sitting in the room are telling you, exactly understanding the gap between the two is something where the decision happens. So right now, in my experience, we have not yet reached a stage where the organizations or the leadership is truly dependent on the data which is being present to make any decisions. We still heavily rely on experts opinion, which is backed up with then the data, and then we try to make the decisions. The execution and service delivery excellence becomes a lot more important in today's scenario, and I have seen it evolving from being called as a back-end teams or back-end operations to being called as somebody which are business enablers. That has been a journey in itself, and I think now I have rarely seen any meetings where the data is not being looked upon. But presenting that data, bringing it at the right time, bringing it at the right visualization, bringing it with the right sort of insights and validating them with the human intelligence is something that service delivery does and brings it on time to the table for the leadership to make the decision. So that is something which makes the role or the function as such all the more important for any organizations to look at. And the journey has evolved from being somebody who is only providing the data to somebody who's generating the insights, providing you the recommendations, and also speaking, drafting a solution which probably will fit in based on those insights, then obviously being validated. But the role in itself has evolved from just being providing the data to providing the recommendations. And that's the true evolution of the service delivery excellence teams in organizations probably has happened so far, because we bring that layer of bringing the intellect on the systems, tools, platforms, and as well as the gaps existing and the solutions to fill in them. So in my opinion, I think these teams would further evolve in bringing all the agentic workflows, automations, have them worked. As you rightly mentioned, doing all of this is easier, but making it ready to scale it up to the global environment is something which these teams are probably working on and would be the great enabler in terms of scaling those solutions to the global environment.
One thing that I care deeply about at a personal level and that we try to carry through this podcast is also recognizing and amplifying the voices of women leading transformation in pharma. Analytics and data leadership have historically been male dominated globally, and yet some of the most interesting transformation work in pharma commercial today is increasingly being led by women. And you are one of those leaders. So, what has been your experience as a woman leader in pharma, and what advice would you give to women who are early or mid career in data analytics or commercial operations and are looking to build leadership level careers in the industry?
Yes, a question that comes along with everything that we do all the time, and it's a fantastic question. So my journey had been, talking about my personal experience, my journey had been really rewardful. And the thing only I want to leave all the women out there with is that it doesn't happen over time. So we need to show some patience. It takes time, for women, like any other women leader out there. It takes time to establish yourself in any role that you're performing. You get challenged, you get pushed, but the consistency is something which helps you develop that credibility over time. So one thing which has really helped me, and I would encourage everybody to do that, is think beyond being technical. You might know a lot of technology, tools, systems, platforms, but if you're not able to connect those to the business problems, it really doesn't help. We have evolved to a situation now, or to a time now, where the solution only happens if you understand the business problem and empathize with people who are impacted by it. So understanding the business problem, connecting it with the solution systems and everything that you're trying to do is something which will take you a long way. And that also helps you establish trust, credibility, and put you in a position where you can kind of give your opinion about what you think. As I said, it would take time, but please start thinking beyond technology is something I would probably encourage everybody to do, because that has helped me and I think that would help everybody else as well.
Bandna, we have covered so much ground today. Your journey, the two sides of the table, the global transformation of pharma commercial operations, the data foundation for omnichannel, and the AI wave that genuinely delivers service delivery excellence and scale. Wow. As we close and or come to rather a close of this session, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought from you. For analytics and marketing professionals who want to build future ready careers in pharma data and omni-channel operations, what is the one thing you would tell them to invest in today that will matter most over the next 5 years?
Yes, so my advice to everybody out there would be to be data literate first. There is still a lot, many challenges that exist in relating the business problem to the data, as I said. And also, while we generate a lot of data, we share it with our stakeholders across the globe. How people understand that data, the message that you're trying to do is something which shows a lot of gap, and we encourage everybody to be data literate, at least within the space that you're working on. Learn how to read this data, understand where the gaps are, understand where the patterns are, because that helps you lead your conversations, not make you technical, but make you someone who knows the business and understand the data, what it is speaking, and identify those gaps. That would be one advice I would give. Obviously, we are evolving at such a pace that continuous learning, nobody can kind of walk away without being at the student side of it on daily basis. Even at today's time, I mean, everybody I see, any leaders, people are going through a drastic change and learning to adopt, learning new things, the technologies, the tools, and I think everybody should be having that learning spirit, and we should continue to learn. Also, not get overwhelmed with all that which is happening in the AI space, but try to understand the fundamentals of it, right? What AI can do, what agentic AI can do, and how it can solve our problem. There is a huge difference in itself. Understanding of the technology in itself, or the terminologies in itself, the taxonomies that are existing. So probably getting the basics right and understanding them from that perspective, I think would help people go a long way along with everything else they are doing. So be open to learn, explore, experiment is something that would take you a long way in my view.
Thank you so much, Bandana, for your such an insightful and forward-looking conversation. Your perspectives on data operations, delivery excellence, and putting India together as a global pharma capability hub in analytics and AI, and especially omni-channel marketing, have been incredibly valuable, especially for the leaders striving to turn data into patient-centric engagements. Worked on multiple such projects. To our listeners, we hope this episode of the Pharma Marketing Playbook, Data Gen AI and Beyond, has helped you gain a clearer understanding of how strong data foundations, intelligent operations, and the right leadership mindset can shape the future of omnichannel marketing in pharma. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. For more updates and episodes, follow us on our social media handles. Until next time, this is Saumya signing off. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in pharma marketing and AI. Thank you for tuning in. Take care.